Good evening, and welcome to The Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5, deep in the bowels of the United Police State of Amnesia. Today is October 21st, 2016, and a couple of nights ago, the world witnessed the third and final debate between Donald J. Trump and Hillary Rodham Clinton, both of whom are vying to achieve the status of President of the United States. Now, some people may believe that this is the most powerful position in the world. It is not. However, the United States is still an extremely powerful country and is the dominant power in the world at this time. Now, how long that will continue, who knows? But one thing we can be certain of, and that is that whoever wins the office of the United States, the politics of America, and the way politics are run, and the way the people of America think about the political system is forever changed. Once people have awakened to the truth, there is no putting them back to sleep again. It will not happen. What we've been seeing throughout this campaign, on this particular campaign, I have to emphasize this. In this particular campaign, the Democrats are going all out to ensure a continuity of power. They want the ability to pass the baton to the next regime unbroken. So we have George W. Bush, just to speak in terms of the latest of 21st century politics. You have George W. Bush to Barack Obama, and now to whomever. But so you have 8 years, and presumably another 8 years. They want to keep that baton in the major party. If there had been in the Democratic Party, why is that? When they switched before, the baton passed smoothly from the Republicans to the Democrat. Why is that? Very clearly, because Donald Trump is a wild card. Donald Trump is not really a Republican or a Democrat. He's really an independent. He is not in the pocket of George Soros or Bill Gates or any other billionaire, because he's a billionaire himself. He has not taken money from the Republican Party. They have not contributed to his campaign. He's paid for it mostly himself and with the donations of ordinary citizens, very small donations, much like we saw with Bernie Sanders and other independently minded and outsider candidates in the past. Although, was Bernie Sanders truly an outsider? That's a question that could be open to debate, because although he appeared to be an outsider, he has now turned on his own followers and essentially betrayed them by advocating for Hillary Clinton. And this is something that is astonishing, and you have to wonder, did Bernie Sanders know this from the beginning, that he would not get the nomination? I do think he probably had a good inkling that that is what is going to happen. You cannot be an insider and really, unless you're incredibly dense, not see how things are rigged against you. And Donald Trump has been using the word rigged a lot, and people are appalled and astonished that during the third debate, he declared that he would have to look at the results of the election, and if he lost, and see if it was a fair election. And people were astonished, and some of the liberal media said that he's that disqualifies him as for the office of presidency. He's no longer has the capacity to continue on as a candidate. They literally wrote him off at that minute, said it's over for him, he's lost the election. And that giddy euphoria among the liberal press probably lasted less than 24 hours. And now, of course, on the very next day, Trump, in a couple of different speeches, just explained why he felt that way. He joked about it, and joking has an incredible way of clearing the air. He said, "I will not examine the outcome of this election if I win. I won't question it." And ha ha ha, his followers laughed. And this is one thing that Hillary Clinton is almost incapable of doing, being humorous. She has no humor. She's unremittingly grim and robotic. That word has been used quite a bit. Al Gore was also robotic in 2000, and that's one of the reasons why George W. Bush won, because he had style. I despise the man. I think he's a puppet and a moron, and caused the deaths and the displacement of literally millions of people in the Middle East and other places, mostly in the Middle East. Now, I think that Hillary Clinton is setting herself up to also be the bloodthirsty queen of the world, in which millions will die in just a continuous bloodbath of constant war. Because, as Ralph Nader said, Hillary Clinton never saw a war or a weapon system she didn't like. And that's a direct quote. Ralph Nader is one of probably the most knowledgeable of the high-profile figures, pundits. He's a legend. He's a legend in his own time, an amazingly erudite individual, and you cannot discount what he has to say. Chris Hedges is another one. Many of the most respected members of the press, who, as a result of questioning Hillary Clinton's credentials, actually are marginalized. They have, fallen by the wayside. They're no longer being looked at seriously or given an opportunity to speak. They're denied a platform in this election. And the New York Times, led by the New York Times, the mainstream press, has thrown down the gauntlet. They have abandoned their traditional stance of nonpartisanship and have gone all out to stop Trump. Why? Because they're owned by the owners of the world. And it's a very small group of men, maybe as few as 60, who literally own the world. And they have an agenda, they have a plan for the future. And friends, it does not include you and me or 99.9% of the rest of the planet. We will be marginalized. Only those who fall in line and can be useful to the owners of the planet will be allowed to prosper if they get their wish. The chances are they won't get their wish. Why is that? Because people are waking up all over the world, and as I said before, once the sleeping giant is awakened, it will not fall back to sleep until the status quo is regained in their position, in their natural leadership. The leadership of the people is restored to equilibrium. So I'm going to show the first 15 minutes of the debate, and then I'll make some comments on it. So let's roll that 15-minute clip.
First of all, where do you want to see the court take the country? And secondly, what's your view on how the Constitution should be interpreted? Do the founders' words mean what they say, or is it a living document to be applied flexibly according to changing circumstances? In this segment, Secretary Clinton, you go first. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks to UNLV for hosting us. You know, I think when we talk about the Supreme Court, it really raises the central issue in this election, namely, what kind of country are we going to be? What kind of opportunities will we provide for our citizens? What kind of rights will Americans have? And I feel strongly that the Supreme Court needs to stand on the side of the American people, not on the side of the powerful corporations and the wealthy. For me, that means that we need a Supreme Court that will stand up on behalf of women's rights, on behalf of the rights of the LGBT community, that will stand up and say no to Citizens United, a decision that has undermined the election system in our country because of the way it permits dark, unaccountable money to come into our electoral system. I have major disagreements with my opponent about these issues and others that will be before the Supreme Court. But I feel that at this point in our country's history, it is important that we not reverse marriage equality, that we not reverse Roe v. Wade, that we stand up against Citizens United, we stand up for the rights of people in the workplace, that we stand up and basically say the Supreme Court should represent all of us. That's how I see the court, and the kind of people that I would be looking to nominate to the court would be in the great tradition of standing up to the powerful, standing up on behalf of our rights as Americans. And I look forward to having that opportunity. I would hope that the Senate would do its job and confirm the nominee that President Obama has sent to them. That's the way the Constitution fundamentally should operate. The President nominates, and then the Senate advises and consents or not, but they go forward with the process.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. Mr. Trump, same question. Where do you want to see the court take the country, and how do you believe the Constitution should be interpreted?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you, and thank you, everybody. The Supreme Court, it's what it's all about. Our country is it's just so imperative that we have the right justices. Something happened recently where Justice Ginsburg made some very, very inappropriate statements toward me and toward a tremendous number of people, many, many millions of people that I represent, and she was forced to apologize, and apologize she did. But these were statements that should never, ever have been made. We need a Supreme Court that, in my opinion, is going to uphold the Second Amendment and all amendments, but the Second Amendment, which is under absolute siege. I believe if my opponent should win this race, which I truly don't think will happen, we will have a Second Amendment which will be a very, very small replica of what it is right now. But I feel that it's absolutely important that we uphold because of the fact that it is under such trauma. I feel that the justices that I am going to appoint, and I've named 20 of them, the justices that I'm going to appoint will be pro-life. They will have a conservative bent. They will be protecting the Second Amendment. They are great scholars in all cases, and they're people of tremendous respect. They will interpret the Constitution the way the founders wanted it interpreted, and I believe that's very, very important. I don't think we should have justices appointed that decide what they want to hear. It's all about the Constitution and so important, the Constitution the way it was meant to be. And those are the people that I will appoint.
Mr. Trump, thank you. We now have about 10 minutes for an open discussion. I want to focus on two issues that, in fact, by the justices that you name, could end up changing the existing law of the land. First is one that you mentioned, Mr. Trump, and that is guns. Secretary Clinton, you said last year, and let me quote, "The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment." And now, in fact, in the 2008 Heller case, the court ruled that there is a constitutional right to bear arms, but a a right that is reasonably limited. Those were the words of the judge, Antonin Scalia, who wrote the decision. What's wrong with that?
Well, first of all, I support the Second Amendment. I lived in Arkansas for 18 wonderful years. I represented upstate New York. I understand and respect the tradition of gun ownership. It goes back to the founding of our country. But I also believe that there can be and must be reasonable regulation. Because I support the Second Amendment doesn't mean that I want people who shouldn't have guns to be able to threaten you, kill you or members of your family. And so when I think about what we need to do, we have 33,000 people a year who die from guns. I think we need comprehensive background checks, need to close the online loophole, close the gun show loophole. There's other matters that I think are sensible, that are the kind of reforms that would make a difference, that are not in any way conflicting with the Second Amendment. You mentioned the Heller decision, and what I was saying that you referenced, Chris, was that I disagreed with the way the court applied the Second Amendment in that case, because what the District of Columbia was trying to do was to protect toddlers from guns. And so they wanted people with guns to safely store them. And the court didn't accept that reasonable regulation, but they've accepted many others. So I see no conflict between saving people's lives and defending the Second Amendment.
Let me bring Mr. Trump in here. The Bipartisan Open Debate Coalition got millions of votes on questions to ask here, and this was, in fact, one of the top questions that they got. How will you ensure the Second Amendment is protected? You just heard Secretary Clinton's answer. Does she persuade you that while you may disagree on regulation, that in fact she supports a Second Amendment right to bear arms?
Well, the D.C. versus Heller decision was very strongly, and she was extremely angry about it. I watched. I mean, she was very, very angry when upheld. And Justice Scalia was so involved, and it was a well-crafted decision. But Hillary was extremely upset, extremely angry, and people that believe in the Second Amendment and believe in it very strongly were very upset with what she had to say.
Well, let me bring in Secretary Clinton. Were you extremely upset?
Well, I was upset because, unfortunately, dozens of toddlers injure themselves, even kill people with guns, because, unfortunately, not everyone who has loaded guns in their homes takes appropriate precautions. But there's no doubt that I respect the Second Amendment, that I also believe there's an individual right to bear arms. That is not in conflict with sensible, common sense regulation. And, you know, look, I understand that Donald's been strongly supported by the NRA. The gun lobby's on his side. They're running millions of dollars of ads against me. And I regret that, because what I would like to see is for people to come together and say, of course, we're going to protect and defend the Second Amendment, but we're going to do it in a way that tries to save some of these 33,000 lives that we lose every year.
Let me bring Mr. Trump back into that, because, in fact, you oppose any limits on assault weapons, any limits on high-capacity magazines. You support a national right to carry law. Why, sir?
Well, let me just tell you, before we go any further, in Chicago, which has the toughest gun laws in the United States, probably you could say by far, they have more gun violence than any other city. So we have the toughest laws, and you have tremendous gun violence. I am a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I don't know if Hillary was saying it in a sarcastic manner, but I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the NRA, and it's the earliest endorsement they've ever given to anybody who ran for president. So I'm very honored by all of that. We are going to appoint justices. This is the best way to help the Second Amendment. We are going to appoint justices that will feel very strongly about the Second Amendment, that will not do damage to the Second Amendment.
Well, let's pick up on another issue which divides you and the justices that whoever ends up winning this election appoints could have a dramatic effect there, and that's the issue of abortion.
Right.
Mr. Trump, you're pro-life, but I want to ask you specifically, do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact states, a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that that will go back to the individual states.
But I'm asking you specifically, would you
If
like
they
to...
overturned it, it'll go back to the states.
But what I'm asking you, sir, is do you want to see the court overturn? You just said you want to see the court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe
Well,
v.
if
Wade?
we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Secretary Clinton?
Well, I strongly support Roe v. Wade, which guarantees a constitutional right to a woman to make the most intimate, most difficult in many cases, decisions about her health care that one can imagine. And in this case, it's not only about Roe v. Wade. It is about what's happening right now in America. So many states are putting very stringent regulations on women that block them from exercising that choice, to the extent that they are defunding Planned Parenthood, which, of course, provides all kinds of cancer screenings and other benefits for women in our country. Donald has said he's in favor of defunding Planned Parenthood. He even supported shutting the government down to defund Planned Parenthood. I will defend Planned Parenthood. I will defend Roe v. Wade, and I will defend women's rights to make their own health care decisions.
Secretary,
and we have come too far to have that turned back now. And indeed, he said women should be punished, that there should be some form of punishment for women who obtain abortions. And I could just not be more opposed to that kind of thinking.
I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I want to ask you, Secretary Clinton, I want to explore how far you believe the right to abortion goes. You have been quoted as saying that the fetus has no constitutional rights. You also voted against a ban on late-term partial birth abortions. Why?
Because Roe v. Wade very clearly sets out that there can be regulations on abortion so long as the life and the health of the mother are taken into account. And when I voted as a senator, I did not think that that was the case. The kinds of cases that fall at the end of pregnancy are often the most heartbreaking, painful decisions for families to make. I have met with women who, toward the end of their pregnancy, get the worst news one could get, that their health is in jeopardy if they continue to carry to term, or that something terrible has happened or just been discovered about the pregnancy. I do not think the United States government should be stepping in and making those most personal of decisions. So you can regulate if you are doing so with the life and the health of the mother taken into account.
Mr. Trump, your reaction, and particularly on this issue of late-term partial birth abortion.
Well, I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me. Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not acceptable.
Well, that is not what happens in these cases. And using that kind of scare rhetoric is just terribly unfortunate. You should meet with some of the women that I've met with, women I've known over the course of my life. This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make. And I do not believe the government should be making it. You know, I've had the great honor of traveling across the world on behalf of our country. I've been to countries where governments either forced women to have abortions like they used to do in China, or forced women to bear children like they used to do in Romania. And I can tell you the government has no business in the decisions that women make with their families in accordance with their faith, with medical advice, and I will stand up for that right.
All right. But just briefly, I want to move on to another
honestly,
segment.
Nobody has business doing what I just said, doing that as late as 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 days prior to birth. Nobody has that.
All right. Let's move on to the subject of immigration. And there is almost no issue that separates the two of you more than the issue of immigration. Actually, there are a lot of issues that separate the two of you. Mr. Trump, You want to build a wall. Secretary Clinton, you have offered no specific plan for how you want to secure our southern border. Mr. Trump, you are calling for major deportations. Secretary Clinton, you say that within your first 100 days as president, you're going to offer a pathway to citizenship. The question really is, why are you right and your opponent wrong? Mr. Trump, you go first in this segment. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, she wants to give amnesty, which is a disaster and very unfair to all of the people that are waiting in line for many, many years. We need strong borders. In the audience tonight, we have 4 mothers of, these are unbelievable people that I've gotten to know over a period of years whose children have been killed, brutally killed by people that came into the country illegally. You have thousands of mothers and fathers and relatives all over the country. They're coming in illegally. Drugs are pouring in through the border. We have no country if we have no border. Hillary wants to give amnesty. She wants to have open borders. The border secure, as you know, the Border Patrol agents, 16,500 plus ICE last week endorsed me. First time they've ever endorsed a candidate. It means their job is tougher, but they know what's going on. They know it better than anybody. They want strong borders. They feel we have to have strong borders. I was up in New Hampshire the other day. The biggest complaint they have, it's with all of the problems going on in the world, many of the problems caused by Hillary Clinton and by Barack Obama, all of the problems, their single biggest problem is heroin that pours across our southern borders, just pouring and destroying their youth. It's poisoning the blood of their youth and plenty of other people. We have to have strong borders. We have to keep the drugs out of our country. Right now, we're getting the drugs, they're getting the cash. We need strong borders. We need we cannot give amnesty. Now, I want to build the wall. We need the wall. The Border Patrol, ICE, they all want the wall. We stop the drugs. We shore up the border. One of my first acts will be to get all of the drug lords, all of the bad ones. We have some bad people in this country that have to go out. We're going to get them out. We're going to secure the border. And once the border is secured, at a later date, we'll make a determination as to the rest. But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
Okay, so that's approximately 15 minutes of the third debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I think it allows you to, get a little bit of a sense of the relationship between the two. Basically, it's a cage match in which the issues are not fully explored, but the ad hominem attacks are most important. It gets worse as it goes on. And actually, the third debate was not nearly as raucous as the second debate, which was truly a classic of American political debate. Nobody had ever seen anything like it before or since. The highlight of this debate was when the moderator, who was from Fox News, was trying to pin Donald Trump down that he would accept the outcome of the election. Now, why he didn't try to also pin down Hillary Clinton as to her response, or to get a response from her, a promise, let's say, to accept the outcome of the election. I don't know why he didn't go after her as well. Maybe it's because Trump had indicated from way, way back in the beginning, when he was on the stage with, a dozen or more other candidates in the Republican Party, all vying to get that nomination, when he sort of hesitated about whether or not he would accept the outcome. And, we have to hearken back to 2000, when most people on the Democratic side and many other people were so discouraged and so disappointed when Al Gore just meekly accepted the outcome of the recount, where it went to the Supreme Court, and they just simply they stopped the count. They simply gave the presidency to George W. Bush. And it was never really determined whether George W. Bush actually won that election or not. And so, and Al Gore just gave it up. And what was the result of that? Is it possible that there may have been no 9/11, which happened on George W. Bush's watch? Is it possible that we might not have invaded Afghanistan and Iraq and caused the deaths and displacement of millions of people and thousands of American soldiers, and the disruption and almost virtual destruction of an entire generation of young people of the United States, because so many people, so many young men and women both, who were taken through, put through the meat grinder of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then they came back, even if they're not physically wounded, they're psychologically, emotionally, mentally wounded forever, PTSD. You don't get into a situation like that. Even in a so-called good war, you could still suffer the consequences of that. And these wars, which were not really wars, but nothing but political adventures for profit for the multinational corporations and for geopolitics, which most Americans don't even understand. Most Americans probably never even, or at least until recently, had probably never even heard the term geopolitics. But geopolitics is global politics. It is politics in which the fate of the United States is not that important, but it's the welfare and the interests of the multinational corporations, which are truly global in nature, and more so as time goes on. That's what geopolitics is about. The wars are fought with the pretext of, what is the bromide or of the excuse of the year? Let's see, is it to make the world safe for democracy? That's an old one, and they just pull that out whenever they use it. And they don't care about democracy. In fact, democracy is a problem for them. And the fact that we live in a republic in the United States of America is a problem for the multinational corporations and the multinational banks and the multinational financiers and the builders of weapons, the enslavers, the slavers, the global slavers, the sex traffickers, the drug dealers, the global drug dealers, all the people who are the richest and most powerful people on the planet, which is a criminal class which is above the law. And this is why, of course, Hillary Clinton is so cavalier and so confident that she will not be prosecuted. She knows she's above the law. She knows she's beyond the level of laws, that the laws do not apply to her. And she can lie all she wants to get what she wants, to get that coveted brass ring, be the historic figure, have a statue unveiled someday of her in Washington, D.C. First woman president, Hillary Clinton, who by her incredible ingenuity and power was able to destroy the evil regime of Assad, or destroy the evil regime of Libya, or help to destroy the evil regime of Iraq and Iran, and maybe in the clash with Russia that very well may happen. And that will be part of her legacy. And she's probably already thinking about her legacy, how she furthered the aims of George Soros and the other globalists in destroying the United States of America by getting it into a conflict, let's say, with Russia, and gradually over time, during that 8 years, was able to bring about an increase in terrorism, because that's what they want. They want people to be afraid. They want people to be distracted. They want people to be entertained. They want people to be poisoned. Because all those things help to prevent them from focusing on the crimes of leadership. The most egregious crimes that have ever been committed by a human being, by far, are committed by people in positions of power. And this stretches back, it's thousands of years. It's nothing new. Nothing new. This is always the way it's been, and this is always the way it will be. But for as long as human beings have had a civilization, and we're talking about at least minimum 7,000 years, maybe 10,000 years, it keeps stretching back further and further and further. Leadership has brought destruction to its own people and worked with other leaders to force wars to happen between the peoples of countries. Because the peoples who live in the various countries on this planet do not cause wars. They do not have wars with each other. Only the leadership causes wars. And why? To allow them to continue to remain in power, because there must be an enemy. Without an enemy, a leader is not necessary. A strong leader with an army and, to protect you. People can live their lives without strong leaders, without powerful leaders. They don't need leaders. Each person can lead his or her own life. And this is, of course, the way it could be, but it has rarely, if ever, been that way. And, yes, threats do happen. And, of course, this plays into the whole agenda, the whole narrative. Yes, some leaders do take advantage of the ignorance or the stupidity or the desperate need of their people, and they say, our neighbors have a better deal than we. They've got better grazing lands. We should take those. And they do that. And they fire their people up to get greedy and take someone else's property. So then those people have to fight back if they have to hold what they've got. They might just say, we could enslave all those people. That would make it better for us. And it's an essentially godless and psychopathic attitude. These people are godless. They don't recognize that their treasure is not in getting more stuff, but in enjoying and appreciating and being grateful for what they have. Because there's plenty of good stuff all over the world. The world is a bountiful place if people are willing to dig those riches out. The riches are buried everywhere. And there's plenty for all. But the godless leadership is crazy. They're essentially insane. They're crazy. And so they think, well, I will be God. There is no God, so why shouldn't I be God? There is no one in control, so I want to be in control. I want people to prostrate themselves before me and treat me with, as a special person, better than others. I'm smarter, I'm more beautiful, I'm more handsome, I'm stronger. So they want to have those things because in their wretched state of mind, they have nothing. They're so poor. They're so poor. And they're poor inside of their heart. They're empty. And this is the source of it all. This really gets back to the source of it all. So, there's a story that, we have a wolf inside. We have two wolves inside of us, one good wolf and one bad wolf. and the two wolves are fighting for control over us. And you wonder, well, which wolf wins? Well, the wolf that you feed wins. You feed the bad wolf, then it wins. And then you have all those negative traits. You have all those greedy desires, the hatred, the fear. Everything that just brings destruction upon our heads and makes our lives miserable. If you feed the good wolf, you have no fear. You have courage. You have a feeling of self-worth. You feel good. You see what you have rather than yearn after what you don't have. And those bad wolves, they don't get it. They don't get it. The good wolf gets it. So we can overcome. We can enjoy being alive in the situation that we find ourselves in as human beings. We're born as human beings. We have that. We have the life. We have the life of the human being. That's a wonderful thing. That's miraculous. It's amazing. It's incredible. If we were to understand and appreciate how rare it is to be alive and a human being. When you look at the world and the universe, how big it is, and how many people are out there, there's so much emptiness. There's so much, empty space with no life. And yet here there is. Amazing, incredible. So, we have this election, and we have to choose. And one important aspect that should influence our decision is which candidate do we think will kill the fewest number of people after he or she becomes president? Will it be Trump? Will it be Hillary Clinton? Trump has said we can get along with Putin, with Russia. I admire him. He's doing a lot of good things. He's beating ISIS. Whereas we can't. Hillary Clinton has said, as soon as I am president, I will institute a no-fly zone. And the moderator at the third debate actually asked her, well, this general and others have said that if you institute a no-fly zone, we could have war with Russia. This could very easily end up in war with Russia. So he asked her directly, he said, if a Russian airplane violates the no-fly zone and the U.S. military shoots this Russian airplane down, or would it shoot the Russian airplane down? I can't remember exactly how he worded it. And he said, aren't you worried that this is going to be just world war? Because if the U.S. shoots down a Russian airplane, Putin has already said, he didn't mention this, has already said, we will protect our servicemen in Syria, that are in Syria now. They're on the air bases, they're in the cities, they're around, they're there. And Hillary Clinton really didn't answer that. She said, oh yes, I'm aware of what could happen. And so we'd have to make a deal, whatever that means. A deal? How do you make a deal when you put in a no-fly zone? Does she actually think that that Russians are going to put up with only the U.S. military flying above the skies of Syria? Because what happens during a no-fly zone, and this is what happened in Iraq, is that you just take out everything that could be any threat. So all Syria's military defenses, their air bases, And any kind of a threat, you just bomb it. And this alone could very well be enough to spark World War III, because a confrontation, whether it would be a nuclear confrontation, I don't know. But it's really pushing it to do this. And all because Hillary Clinton is working for George Soros and other globalists, and they want Syria gone. And why do they want Syria gone? Why do they want the Syrian regime to be gone? Because Assad is an hereditary dictator. He, remember, took over the reins of power from his father. And so Assad would continue on in control of Syria. This is an independent country. And this is what they don't want. They don't want Syria to be an independent country. They want Syria to be basically flat on its back with its belly cut open, so that the globalists, the bankers, the financiers, can gobble up the innards and all the goodies, get all the riches out of Syria. Just like they did with Iraq, just like they did with Afghanistan. And how they have done it from time immemorial. Nothing new here, folks. Just like they attempted to do, and they did in Libya. And you can just go back, 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 back. And people always fight against this. People struggle to retain the sovereignty of their country, because people get attached to their country because it's their, they feel a sense of ownership, that they belong here. This is where they were born. This is their home. This is where they grew up. They know it, that area. This is where their friends are. This is where their family is. They know the streets. They know the mountains. They know the valleys. They know the rivers. And they don't feel that they should have to be displaced and their homes destroyed and they should be put into refugee camps. They want to stay there. Only in extreme circumstances do they decide that there's no hope of staying here. It's so bad we have to leave. But maybe we can come back someday. Even the Irish during the 19th century, oftentimes, when they were forced to leave their country because of the horrific famine, it was caused by the elites, by the way, not by the ordinary folks in Ireland. This is just an historical example, just one of many. But Ireland had its own final solution. The British and others saw Ireland as a problem. You had a burgeoning population who were on the land that they wanted. How are we going to get these peasants off this land? And they figured out a way to do it. And they got the monocrop going of the vulnerable potatoes, that they were living on. They got them all living on almost the same type of potato. And then, all wiped out, as typically happens once in a while. But because it was a monocrop, it went through everything, the whole crop. And this happened for a couple of years. You had 2 million die of starvation. How many more displaced? Forced to create a diaspora around the world, many coming to America and other places. But even those Irish immigrants wanted to go back, and most of them didn't. Even my own grandfather, dreamed of going back to Ireland. His parents were immigrants. My mother tells a story of my grandfather was terrified of water because of a punishment that his mother had done to him when he was very small for stealing a penny. She hung him and it made him, she lowered him down into the well. And he was very young as a punishment for stealing a penny. And so he was afraid of water for the rest of his life. He had a phobia. And so his My mother tells the story of her and her brother when they were young, trying to tempt their father, my grandfather, into getting into a boat. And I'm digressing, but they said, if you inherited a castle in Ireland, would you get in a boat and cross the ocean to go live in that castle? Would that be enough? And he goes, no. Not even a castle in Ireland would tempt me to get on a boat and get on the water. So that's just an example, of how the Irish dreamed of someday returning to Ireland, that they would hold out this carrot to see if they could tempt him, as kids will do, to see, to try to understand the father's psychology a little bit of how, he was the way he was, But this is something that we have to take into account when we're thinking in terms of destroying national sovereignty, because that's what's happening. I mean, Hillary Clinton is extremely dangerous, and more dangerous because she believes she is above the law. And this has been shown to her that she is above the law, that she can lie to Congress, that she can lie to the FBI about those emails, that she didn't use any, there were no classified emails. That's been proven to be a lie. And that's each time she handled a classified document on her private server, that is a massive felony. That's a felony. That's a federal offense. You can go to prison for years for that, for each one. So she's looking at her whole lifetime in prison. And that will never happen. That will never happen. She knows it will never happen. I mean, Trump says, I'm going to prosecute you if I become president. But this would not be allowed, because it sets a precedent that the leadership of this country are just ordinary people who are susceptible to the laws of the United States. And that would be a bad precedent. We wouldn't want that. And the American people, if they elect Hillary Clinton, will be saying, we don't care if a criminal is in the White House. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Could anyone actually consider voting for Hillary Clinton when they know that she's looking at multiple felonies? And it's so obvious and it's so clear. I mean, that's only part of it. I mean, if that were all of it, that's bad enough. But then you have the depredations of the Clinton Foundation. Absolutely a level of corruption that we have almost never seen before. My son-in-law is from Haiti. And you talk about getting information from the horse's mouth. He said people in Haiti despise, hate, and fear the Clinton family. Both Bill and Hillary. They have been involved in Haiti from well before that earthquake that devastated Port-au-Prince. They have designs on Haiti, and they are using Haiti, and they are sucking the lifeblood out of Haiti and getting control of Haiti. And I think ultimately they would like to become essentially the kings and queens of Haiti. And the people of Haiti have been screwed over so many times and robbed, and you can talk to almost any person from Haiti, but do they get on the national television? Do the people who are demonstrating, that you can look at, you can watch them on YouTube, that were demonstrating with signs, Hillary Clinton, where is our money? Where is our money? The billions of dollars that were donated to the people of Haiti by the people of the world out of a genuine heartfelt, sincere desire to help those poor people, some of the poorest people on the planet, certainly the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, Haiti. Those people never saw that money. And even today, now, I just saw it in a documentary, a short, it was a report really, it was a video report from Haiti, on the ground in Haiti, about 15 or 20 minutes long, talking with people who are desperately trying to help the victims of the hurricane. And literally, some of those people say, do you see any presence of the Clinton Foundation here? Anywhere? Are there any trucks? Or is there any food? Are there any people? Are there any airplanes? Medvacing these hurt people. I mean, a lot of injured people from this hurricane. Are there any of them here? No, you don't see any. They're not. The Clinton Foundation is over in Port-au-Prince making deals for themselves to enrich themselves. Just like Hillary Clinton has somehow, the Clinton Foundation has given Hillary Clinton's brother a gold mine in Haiti. That's what they said. Somehow he acquired a gold mine that belongs to the Haitian people. This is what the Clintons are all about. It's enriching themselves at the expense of everyone else. They want to be billionaires like George Soros. They feel like they deserve it. They want to have a dynasty, and we must prevent them from getting that dynasty. They are completely heartless psychopaths. I mean, this report from Haiti said, where is Red Cross? There was no Red Cross. They showed UN planes, UN trucks with blue-helmeted U.S. troops riding around, and they said, they won't help us. They won't medvac any injured people. The UN can't do it. The U.S. military was flying around. They had helicopters, these massive helicopters flying around. They are not allowed to medvac people, but private citizens, and one guy was saying, I'm richer than the Clintons. I'm a very wealthy guy. I have my own airplane. And he says, I'm doing it myself. I have to do it myself on my own buck to get these poor people to the hospital. And why would the Clintons be so, so evil toward Haiti? They don't like black people. That's the bottom line. They're very, very racist, just like almost all of the elite people are. They look down on black people and Latinos and anyone who's not white as inferior. You can look it up. The Clintons use the N-word. Bill Clinton tells a buddy, after he talked to Obama, he says, oh, isn't it amazing? A few years ago, he would have been serving us coffee. And that's a direct quote from Bill Clinton. So this is the attitude. So don't be fooled by the Clintons. So we'll see how it all works out. But even if the Clinton family gets back in power, it's not the end, as Nigel Farage says. It's only the beginning. So that's all for tonight. Sleep well, friends.